This week we're going to be taking up the topic of program evaluation, or the evaluation of curriculum. And there will be three terms that we'll be using from time to time in this presentation: measurement, evaluation, and assessment. Probably you're already pretty familiar with the difference between measurement and evaluation. However, what I'd like to do is to review that difference and then also explain to you how the term assessment should be used in relation to the terms measurement and evaluation. Measurement, and this just reviews, I think, a concept you've already learned in your methods courses. Measurement is when we simply attach a numerical value to an observation that we make. For example, if you give a quiz in class and a student earns a score of 36 out of 50, all we have done is given a measurement to the performance of achievement on that quiz. When we evaluate a student, when we make an evaluation, what we're doing is attaching a value judgment based upon that measurement. For example, if a student earned a score of 36 out of 50 on a quiz, we can say that that student did very well, or that that student was outstanding, or average, or inferior. And we make that value judgment usually on the basis of a comparison to other students. A couple of other terms that we need to kind of review, and that is the purpose of evaluation. There are two kinds, actually: formative and summative. Formative evaluation is the evaluation that we conduct on a regular basis, and we use it to guide progress, to help us make decisions about how best to teach a particular student, or in the case of program evaluation, whether to make changes in a program, a curriculum, a lesson that we're implementing. With summative evaluation, what we're doing is we're making a final judgment on the outcomes. We've completed either the program or the phase of instruction for a particular student, and we just want to see what we accomplished according to our objectives. Now back to the third term that I said we would be looking at. We started by noting the distinction between measurement and evaluation. The term assessment is a little bit different. Oftentimes we confuse the word assessment with evaluate or with measure, but I want you to note a very important distinction. When we assess, what we're doing is making observations for the purpose of guiding future performance. In other words, assessment is always going to be formative. I think a way to really remember the purpose of assessment is to look at the etymology of the word. It comes to us from the Latin through the French, and it means literally to sit beside, to advise, to help make judgments about the decisions that we're going to be making. A couple of other terms just to review real quickly. The difference between criterion and norm-referenced evaluation is a pretty important one in our business. When we conduct criterion-referenced evaluations, what we're doing is collecting data, and then we're comparing either our students or our programs to some kind of a standard or a criterion. Real simple example of a criterion reference test would be the test we take to get our driver's license. You know, it really doesn't matter how we score on that test in relation to other drivers. There's just a minimum number of questions that we have to answer correctly, and if we've answered those questions correctly, then we get a passing score. We're not judged in comparison to other people, we're just simply judged according to a standard. Now with a norm-referenced evaluation, the opposite is true. What we're being compared to is the distribution of scores in a group. In other words, we're being compared to the average. And if our score is above the average, then we're considered to be above average, doing rather well, superior, whatever judgment term we want to apply to that. But if we score below that average line, that average score, then we make a value judgment based on the fact that we are inferior to the rest of the group. Standardized tests are norm-referenced. That is, the test is given to a large population, average scores are determined, and then whatever score students earn is a score that is in relation to that average. In other words, it's a reference to the norm. Now, what we'd like to do is to kind of move into the difference here between evaluating pupils and evaluating programs. All that you've done so far in your methods courses and what you do on a daily basis in your classrooms is really evaluate pupils. But the subject of our presentation this evening is going to be program evaluation, evaluating curriculum programs, whether or not the curriculum is accomplishing what the people who plan the curriculum set out for it to accomplish. Pupil evaluation, well, we've got several different kinds. There's the traditional type of pupil evaluation, the kinds of objective tests that you make to assess progress of your students in your classroom, and then also the standardized tests, the ones that are given by the state and usually prepared by commercial concerns, test-making companies. But then, of course, we have alternative methods for evaluating pupils. We can look at experiments that they conduct and the records that they keep of those experiments to see if they grasp the application of the scientific process. We can evaluate a project that a student or a group of students has been engaged in, and perhaps have outside consultants evaluate the project. We look at performances. The fine arts and performing arts use performances and exhibitions all of the time for evaluation purposes. And of course there are portfolios, which is a collection of work which is intended to demonstrate how students make progress from one point to another. Those are all alternative assessment methods. The whole idea behind alternative assessments, of course, is that what can be counted doesn't always count, and what counts can't always be counted. It's ironic, I guess, that a preeminent mathematician and physicist was the one who observed this for us. What we're going to do now is turn over to program evaluation. I've had to separate these two topics for the PowerPoint presentation as we did last week, simply because of the size of the files that get loaded into the system. So when you conclude this, then just go ahead and click on Part 2, and we'll take up the topic of program evaluation.